All right, welcome back, everybody. Here we are, another episode. This one we're going to do Department of Truth. This is issue 13. Um,
Lucky
yeah,
number
this
13.
lucky number 13. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one. I love this book from start to finish. And I know normally I toss it off to somebody to go first, but I'm so excited about this one. I just want to jump in because this story is right up my alley. I love when you take historical stuff and put a twist on it, and then also explain a little bit how things got to where they are, and then also add your own twist to it. I love it, and I love the fact that this was really a contained story, in that it's really just these two people having this conversation essentially. But you would think that would be boring, but they're like traveling and going down and revealing information, and just so well done. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away, but there's, if talking about religion turns you off, that maybe this isn't for you, but I'd still say give it a try, because there's so much interesting stuff that they talk about. This makes me want to go and get all previous 12 issues for sure. But anyway, I'll hand it off. Mike, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those where it has kind of the conspiracy theory, or certain people are involved in certain situations, and other folks maybe choose to believe them, maybe choose not to believe them, and kind of into that whole realm of just maybe we don't believe it because it's a younger person or an older person, or they're crazy or this or that or whatever, right? And so it does an amazing job of, as you said, Shane, it does an amazing job of bringing kind of a little bit of what happened in the past to the present conversation. The backgrounds just draw you in as far as adding to that kind of, it's one of those issues that when you start the issue, you're not sure what to make of it, of course, if you don't have the backstory or the previous issues to kind of give you that direction. But man, it grabbed me so fast and grabbed my attention and made it, there was like suspense, and there was like this just feature about the issue that just totally I don't know, it was almost like you said, Shane, it brought a little bit of the historical, it brought you to the present, it brought you to the situation, and just almost a complete story where you're just kind of like, wow, I really don't understand every little detail that they're speaking to, but man, I am so like hooked and at the edge of your seat, like you would be in a movie. And it did that to me. And I was like, didn't really realize that it did that to me till I was like, could not wait to turn the page and see what else is happening with this story. It was amazing. It really was. To be able to do that in such a short time frame of a couple of pages just blew me away. So.
All right, Ben. I can see you're shaking. You're excited.
Yeah. Jump in there, Ben. Don't hold back.
Let it out, Ben.
I mean, okay, so I do want to start with, this is issue 13, and if you add 1 + 3, that's 4. There's 3 branches of government, and the 4th is the media, right? And so the media is, no, I'm just kidding.
Conspiracy.
Ben, we're losing you. Put your tinfoil hat back on, quick. No, I was blown away. So I read, obviously I started with the issue that we're reviewing, 13. And the artwork was the first thing that caught me. Just beautiful watercolor looking, artwork. The use of like splash pages, like the 2-page spreads and stuff. It was just gorgeous, beautiful art. The story was super intriguing. And so I went back, and this is the one that I went and bought, like both trade paperbacks, and I bought the 2 issues in between them and all this stuff, the asides, I think they're called, or something. Anyway, Oh my gosh, it's so good. The story, but to be fair, I'll jump this into 13. I still feel like obviously it's not like the best entry point if you're just jumping in.
All right.
But I still felt like you got a good story and a feel for the characters in it. I'm going with the whole series, but even in this issue, the artwork was beautiful. I really think this is right up my alley too, Shane, as you said, like just taking all these like disparate conspiracy theories, but then just like well, without giving too much away, but just like some people within the book, tying them all together into this shared universe, it's amazing. And then I'm sorry, the use of those conspiracy theories, but then also like really, so they go from something so broad, right, like the QAnon type stuff and all that, but then they take that and they narrow it down to like this really personal story for Cole, yeah, the main character.
Yep. Cool.
And so I thought that was really a cool thing, is that you can also have this personal story, this guy's like journey and his pain and suffering, but tied into this bigger crazy universe that none of us saw. And then the rest of it, like if you go back to all the issues, it's just amazing how they tie in everything, all the different, like everything from like Charlemagne to friggin 9/11 to whatever, they tie that all together into these people who are fighting for control of the world, right? So it was super interesting. So I can't give this book enough praise personally.
I can see why it's nominated for on the cover Eisner Award. Yeah, I could see why.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Paul.
Yeah. So obviously James Tynion, the writer, I'm familiar with his work. He's done Batman Detective. He's done a lot of other series for the big two. He has his own independent book he's putting out right now, a horror anthology quarterly called Razor Blades. So there's a quick plug on that. It's like 72 pages each one. There's only 3 to 4 a year. So I've got the first couple of those, and it's basically a collection of horror stories. And you can see that, having written Detective Comics and Batman and Department of Truth, James Tynion loves him some horror. But what jumped out to me, and again, I've been there since the beginning. Who controls what's true, right? What is the big theme running through culture right now? What do we agree on are facts? What is true? If enough people say something, does that make it true? Does evidence make it true? What makes it true? And I think what this series is saying is, yeah, if enough people say something, regardless of how much evidence, scientific or common sense or otherwise, it's true. And I think that's what this series is saying is, you better be careful about what you ask for. Be careful if you're in the realm of making statements or, directing the conversation, or you have any kind of power, you start creating your own truth. And that's what this is about. I mean, I'm just going to use 3 quick little words: Lee Harvey Oswald, right? And you guys have seen that theme through the book. And, it's been amazing how they brought that's the first thing that brought me in. Obviously, and for you guys that have read from the beginning, that was sort of the hook. And then it just sort of turned into everything else. All these different conspiracy theories. And most of us would just sit there and shake our head and think, how could everyday, normal, rational people believe this? And then you find out that quite a few. But why do they believe it? Is it because enough people say it? Is it because they're looking for some greater meaning in their own lives? Are they looking to be a part of something? And with Cole, as a young child, it started out with a nightmare. And to sort of bring it to this issue specifically, without ruining any of the surprises or anything, but obviously it looks like Hawk is going to take Cole to his boyhood home, and then they drive right past it and they go to the school, to the daycare, whatever it was, when he was a kid, where he first saw the star-faced man in the basement, right, who consumed children. Obviously, Cole didn't believe that as he got older, but he couldn't shake the nightmare. And now he ends up full circle. He's an FBI analyst who is all about the facts and what you can prove. And now he's come full circle back to a childhood nightmare that he can't shake. So now he's questioning if he even what he thought was real is real. So here we are again talking about what's true, what does it mean to be human, who makes the rules, who makes the truth. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring up the school that he went to and what happens in this issue. Once again, not giving anything away, but I felt like the vibe had a kind of Stranger Things vibe a little bit. And there's a book that Stephen King did recently called The Institute, and it also takes place in kind of a school setting with younger kids, and so this, that kind of a vibe was what I was getting, in addition to the conspiracy stuff, which I is all right up my alley. I love all of that stuff. Was interesting. And it's interesting you talk about this idea of what's the truth and what isn't. And if we say something enough, does it become the truth? And can we manifest it in a way that it becomes reality? And that's, that's the other thing that makes this book so topical, is where we're at now with, QAnon and, this idea of, what the news portrays. And, we can even talk about, this most recent thing that just happened with CNN with, using that power of the media to
that platform.
influence that platform, and that came back and bit them in the rear end. So yeah, I think that this book is, it also kind of has a little bit of X-Files vibe into it too, with the whole agents thing,
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what's interesting about comic books in general as an art form, is we've mentioned this on some other episodes about the idea that it has elements of other things. And I feel like comic books, even more so than other forms of artwork, are able to bring in so many different things, from storytelling to art styles that are influenced by other things. And that's really what all art is the culmination of all of what you bring to it, as well as what you experienced in life, and putting that onto the page. And the same thing can be said for music as well. You listen to certain music, you're like, that kind of sounds like it was influenced by this. And that's what all art is. It's all influenced by. And so yeah, yeah, whatever was influence in this writer's life that brought him to this point, he and I are on the same wavelength. So I'm feeling it for sure. Yeah, I loved every bit of this. Yeah, and like I said, initially when I first mentioned the book, just this idea that it's these two characters, and for me that really allowed me to get into the story a lot quicker, because there wasn't as many new characters that I don't have any experience about. And you could tell right at the introduction of the first couple of pages what their relationship is, and that there's a little tension there. And so all of it just pulled me right in. And that surprise kind of at the ending, where I'm not going to give it away, but I was like, what? Okay, now I gotta add this to my pull box at the comic shop, because here's another book I got to get, because I'm hooked. But
there's I know you guys you probably will have a saying after this, and it'll be like, thanks, Paul. which is a loaded comment, saying now you got to spend extra money at the comic shop.
Yeah, that's right. You're going to get a phone call from my wife, Paul.
Right. What's this text message threatening my life with the star-faced man coming to my house?
Blew through my allowance.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, you get an allowance?
Oh man.
It just and I'm glad, Ben, you brought up the artwork earlier. I'm a big fan of so it's kind of abstract, but with purpose, right? I don't think this kind of artwork would work with all characters, all titles. It really has to fit the theme that they're trying to portray. And obviously, there's been some up and down because they've changed artists. I'm sure if you guys that have seen the rest of the story, there's been a couple of substitute artists from time to time, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, really. It gives some of these additional artists kind of a voice on this medium. But I'm a big fan of Martin Simmonds, the main artist. Some of the art sometimes is distracting, but that's only because, again, it pulls your attention away from the script. It forces you to look at the panel, to see what's going on, to see something abstract in the background, like something painted on a wall that has something to do with it, but you would not, if you were just reading word bubbles panel to panel, you would miss that. And so my thought is Martin Simmonds has taken the time to create this. So I'm at least going to give it a shot. I'm going to look through it. And maybe that's why my, 2 reads per issue, because the first time you go through and you're like, I know I missed something, especially with a story like this. And I think the readability of this is really high, because you missed something the first pass through. I think, Mike, you said it. You said you couldn't wait for the next page, and sometimes that, as comic readers, that can bite us, because you go through and you're like, no, wait a minute, let me go back. Why would I do that to myself? You want to soak it all in. Yeah. And like you said, Shane, it's really topical because, I don't know how long James Tynion had this sort of, ready to go, but it's only 13 issues in, and actually 14. You guys haven't seen the newest one yet, but just came out this past Wednesday. But 2 years in, so it's sort of pretty recent. I would say current events strongly influenced this and continues to. It's not getting better.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Going back to I want to keep talking about this book, but going back to the art, to your point, Paul, not just the panel. What I loved about his artwork is the page. Like of course, reading each individual panel, but I would take a sec to pull back and look at the page, because quite often he was tying all this imagery together, which I love, because I feel like this, you're right, like this it's not always, this type of artwork's not always going to work for every kind of story, right? But what I love about this, especially because we're talking about conspiracy theories and what's real and what isn't, there's so much he's tying into the page that gives you this, I don't know, like, sometimes there's that feeling of like, what is going on, or you're almost trying to connect the dots between things just outside the panel to what's in, and it's almost playing with your mind in that regard, keeping with that conspiracy theory, like, are there dots to connect? And the whole idea that they talk about in the book of people are trying to look for answers in a complicated world. They want simple answers, and you're not always going to get that. But I think, like, anyway, go back to the pages. I feel like the page, like his artwork plays with that a bit. It's just, I can't say enough good things. I keep saying that. One thing I did want to bring up was I did notice, or I did think about, there was an old, I'm probably dating myself again a little bit, In the Mouth of Madness. There was a movie called In the Mouth of Madness. Love that movie. Great kind of Lovecraftian horror. That's one of the lines that always stuck with me from that movie is, reality is what the majority says it is. And that this book kind of echoes that sentiment, I really loved that tie-in. So it's I love their new take on it, though, because again, I'm getting outside of this issue, but I do this particular issue, but I do feel like their take on what is and what isn't real is a fresh new take on it, because again, it's not something that hasn't been explored before, but they're doing it in such a cool way. And to me, the artwork is like doing 80% of the lift for me. Like, I loved it. I feel like it did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those stories that James Tynion has to be just like tickled over how it's being portrayed, because when you're writing it, you have it in your mind of what you'd like it to look like. But if you were an artist, you would draw it too, right? But he's a writer, so maybe he can draw. I don't know. I've never seen it, but chances are, he's probably not to that level. So he's probably seen an artist and said, that's how I picture it, and I need that guy on my book. And it's great that a company like Image allows these guys to create something like this, because even though the big two have branched out a little bit occasionally with something like this, it's usually been short-lived, because that the audience that goes 100% for the big two and doesn't expand outside of that much may not get to enjoy something like this, just because there's a mature theme to it. And DC's doing something now with their Black Label and things like that, so there's some more mature themes there that they can explore. But something like this, I think, is probably too controversial for Marvel or DC to take on. So I'm really glad I caught on to it. There's another one that another story like this that I can share. We'll share offline and maybe discuss. I think you guys would enjoy it. If you enjoyed this, you'll enjoy that. So I'll bring that up at offline. But I will tell you that this is one of those where just when I think maybe kind of like some of the other titles we discussed, where when's it going to lose steam? And it hasn't. I mean, for 14 issues, and let me tell you, I know you guys are already going to buy the 14th because you're like the Godfather, right? Pull me back in.
That's right.
Let me tell you, the last page of the 14th issue, you will probably drop the book. I dropped it in my lap, like, wait, what?
Nice.
You're like, what? Okay, did not see that coming. Right on, cool.
Wow.
What I liked about this issue was this is the first one, and I know, Ben, you've gone back and read it from the top. So this has probably been the most personal to Cole. I mean, they've talked about him, and he's had him and Hawk have had conversations. He's had interactions, and you're finding out about his life. But this is the first one where they took him. Hawk took him somewhere that tied it all back to his childhood, and it all came back to him. So, not to misinterpret, say this is a great jumping on point, because obviously it's part of the larger story. But if you really want to know what Cole was all about, this was the issue to jump in on. Because it was, like you said, Shane, it was all about him and Hawk from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little harder on the artwork. And Paul and I briefly talked about this. And I think, that's one thing about comic books as well, is that all of it is going to be subjective to who you are as a human being. This style of artwork is, and I think you even mentioned this, Ben, that it's definitely might not be for everyone's taste.
Yeah.
I just personally, I'm not a huge fan of the watercolor kind of scratchy style. It actually reminds me of a little bit of old Bill Sienkiewicz work from like New Mutants back in the early 80s, like this very experimental. And I will say that listening to this conversation, that's the great thing about these conversations, is that it makes you reevaluate what your initial impression was, because I think that, Paul, you're probably right that it does fit within this story style, and it wouldn't work with like a superhero style, I don't think. Given that, I still, maybe it's just because I was so engrossed with the story that I wanted to be closer to those characters, and I felt like this artwork almost pushes me away, and doesn't allow me the clarity, because it's so scratchy, and the colors drip together, and I felt like it's almost like there's like a haze over my eyes, that I don't have a clarity of these characters that I wanted, because I was so engrossed with the story that I wanted to be closer to them, and I almost felt like this artwork style pulled me away from them. So that was my interpretation of it.
Now, and again, you think maybe that's intentional? They're trying to obscure
That may be
characters.
that may be,
I mean, I could see in 5 issues them telling us neither of these characters even exist, and they're part of somebody's larger nightmare, and you'll be like, 15 issues, you told me Cole was this guy from Milwaukee, and it's so that's the thing is, how close to the characters do they want you to be? And you're right, Shane, they're aside from, some bushy blonde hair and glasses, you don't see a whole lot of Cole. Right. It doesn't, even close-ups on his face. It's while I would say there's some very I won't say harsh lines, but they're very, very detailed, but it doesn't allow you to really get there's no emotion on their face almost sometimes.
right. Yeah.
And I wonder if sometimes that's intentional, because there's just like this, they're just in complete just shock of what's going on, that the world you thought you knew is not that at all. And there's this shadowy group called the Department of Truth that's actually fighting are they fighting to keep what's real, or are they trying to keep what's not real simmering below the surface.
Mhm.
We don't really know. And that's what I to this day, and Ben, you've read the whole thing, and we don't want to ruin anything for anyone that might want to seek this out. We highly recommend it. But is the Department of Truth a good thing or not?
Mhm.
Truth is a good thing, but is the Department of Truth a good, they're those shadowy figures wearing black suits. I mean, normally we don't like that stuff.
Right.
They show up at your door,
Conspiracy of a conspiracy.
you get a little worried. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Tynion, I think has another hit on his hands. He's done some great stuff. I'm not a fan of every single thing he does, but more often than not, his work like this really hits home for me. Like you said, Shane, it's so topical, it's so
Mhm.
timely, and he's probably in our age range, so he's probably feeling what we feel.
Mhm.
The sort of the cultural themes, and I think that's coming out here, and it's timely too because there's so much that he's bringing in from the past and what's going on right now and finding a way to tie it together. I mean, I would not take QAnon and go back 50 years and tie it to the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
He did it. And I'm like, okay, yeah. All right.
Okay.
And somehow tied it to the Roman Empire. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. Right. And and that's not all, right?
Maybe.
There's so much more in there. And if
Yeah.
obviously we don't want to ruin it, but anyone that catches up on this is really going to go, if you're a, if you like to, let's say, dabble in that kind of, conspiracy stuff that's out there and just read it for your own, edification. It's fun because they bring up in the latest issue 14, which we're not discussing, but they bring up, there's even more. If you thought you had your fill up to issue 13, there's another. I actually Googled the guy that they bring up and I'm like, this guy was real.
Wow.
Well,
Nice.
that's what. Sorry.
You're not. That's okay. Yeah. No, you guys, you got to get the latest issue. And if you
Yeah.
want to talk about that one, let's do it. I mean, I like I said, I dropped the book on my lap. I was like, wait, what? Where's my Google machine? I got
Well, and that's you bring up a great point. That's one thing I've liked about the whole is I'm going to talk about the whole series, but and I feel like this is on purpose too, is what is real, what isn't, right? And so they're talking about some of these conspiracy theories or some of these people who've created things or talked about this
Right.
and that. And I've had to go look it up because I'm like, wait, is that a real thing? And it's really cool to find like a lot of this is real, but it also keeps you guessing because some of these things are like, oh yeah, we squashed that particular belief. And then you look it up and there's nothing about it. And you're like,
right.
okay, but what about this next thing? And so it
Nice.
keeps you, that's one thing I enjoyed about the whole.
So I'm
the
sure
whole series there.
Tynion at his house has got like this scrapbook that looks like Department of Truth stuff. And boy, if they ever,
Yes.
if the Men in Black ever show up to his house, he's in trouble.
He's got like the red string tie with pins.
Yes.
All his windows are lined with tin foil, keeping the bad man out.
Yes.
I wanted to go back, jump back a little bit, but the discussion with the kind of haziness and the distance created by the artwork. So, and again, this is having read the whole series. There's something they talk about, and I don't feel like this is giving anything away, like story wise, but something they talk about with those things that aren't real that are manifested in reality. There is a otherworldly quality to those things. There's supposed to be like your eyes get messed up trying to look at it. You're having a hard time seeing these things, and being in its presence, like in the presence of anything that's manifested into reality by belief. And I wonder, and again, maybe I'm giving too much, to the artist, but I wonder if that was a choice of the author and artist of like keeping it feeling a little unreal.
Oh,
the
that's
whole
interesting.
thing, and keeping that like distance there. So I don't know. That's just having read that and then looking into it more, because I do agree with you. There's some frustrating panels where I'm like, okay, who is that?
Mhm.
Or what's going on here? Or I think one of you brought up it's hard to see the emotion on the
Yes.
face sometimes. And you have to just kind of feel it through the color and through the, so you almost have to use the art to like get the feeling, get the emotion out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Which isn't
absolutely.
everybody's cup of tea,
I think they're trying to add to the confusion and just echo the character's confusion and say, we don't know what the hell's going on either.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's kind of
clear.
it's
Yeah.
so the abstract is well, it can be distracting. I'll give you that, Shane. And there are panels where maybe it's not as necessary as some others, but I think overall, I think that, that's probably the theme running through it, but I get how it can be distracting for sure.
Well, I mean, to extrapolate on that idea, I mean, we could theorize that the art is keeping you at that distance, but forcing you to look closer, almost using what they're talking about story wise to force you to pay attention to the details and look closer to see who that person is. Same thing that they're talking about with the truth. Like, you've got to pay attention, and you've got to not just glance or look at somebody and go, oh yeah, that's what they look like. No, you got to, in this story, you've got to really pay attention and look closer and look for the details and look for who that person really is. So maybe there's a lot more going on. Maybe we're giving a lot more credit to the artist than what they intended. But if that is the case, then then I need to reevaluate what I placed my rating on the artwork. We'll have to get the
We're doing our
artist on
own
the
conspiracy
show.
theory.
Yeah, right. We're doing our own conspiracy theory on this artwork of the book. Fascinating.
Job well done, artist.
Yes, nailed it.
I like how with all three issues, we've been able to, modify, Shane's critique. He's like, in retrospect, hearing all you guys talk about this, I'm gonna have to reevaluate.
So I need to think about
We're
this.
simulating him.
Maybe
That's
it's
right. Yes. I love it.
pulling the old penguin thing. You didn't see anything.
That's right. Well, let's get into the reviews, Paul. Let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with it since the beginning. Again, I'm a big fan of James Tynion and Martin Simmonds with the art. I haven't been as drawn into a book like this for quite a few years. So for the writing, I'm going to give it, a 5. For the art, I'm going to give it a 4.5, only because, like we mentioned, at times some panels can be distracting, but overall, I'm really liking what they've done. And so for overall, I'm going to give it a 4.5, only because I think some of the storyline has bogged from page to page, but overall, it's a great story.
Nice. Mike.
So, single issue reader, I definitely am vested to where I would like to expand from just one single issue. The story is great. Again, we touched on that at the beginning of this episode, where it's telling a little bit of backstory, brings you around, starts to really encompass a lot more. And so I think just, again, being able to do that in such a short amount of time is phenomenal. So story, I'm giving it a 4.5 stars. Artwork, each of you have brought some interesting items to the table regarding the artwork. And I think I'm going to give credit to the artists in that they're trying to set the overall tone with the being deliberate in the haziness or shadowy or muddied waters. And I think that just tells so much about the overall tone of the story and the conspiracy and all of that. So I'm giving it the same rating. I'm giving the artwork also 4.5 stars for an overall rating of 4.5. I think it was just excellent. Very talented folks coming together and just, putting the pieces of the puzzle, conspiracy puzzle together, but just telling the story, illustrating the story, just phenomenal work. I think Ben touched on the splash pages, and I love it when artists do that. And so there's definitely some original moments in the issue. So 4.5, excellent book, excellent read, and I'm vested into getting into other issues. So,
all right, Ben, here's your moment.
I'm doing it. No, so I'm gonna start with the story. Now, actually, and I know I've been talking about this book. I am gonna go to a 4, and instead of I wanted to go 5. Well, but the reason being, there is some lull in some of it, and there's a lot of the use of oh, so and so knows about this. Well, what are you talking about? That's not my story to tell. And then I'm like, well, son of a
Yeah.
bitch, why'd you bring it up? You know? And I know what they're doing, right? They're keeping the mystery going and everything.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, all the four, but to me, there's been like, actually, I think it's 3 times maybe throughout the series so far that's been that's not my story to tell has been the line they've said.
Right.
And it's different characters.
Or that's all I've got to say about that. You didn't say anything.
So but yeah, so going back, I'm sorry, so the story I would give a 4. Again, great story. I love the subject matter. I think he's as somebody who is likes writing myself, I read a book like this and I'm like, how the hell did you like connect this and this and this?
Oh,
and
yeah.
like we were saying earlier, I'm sure he has some map set up somewhere tying everything together, because I don't know how he keeps all that stuff straight. It's crazy. But yeah, definitely a solid 4 for that. The artwork for me is a 5. Again, I am giving credit to the artist, just like Mike said, that they're doing all of this with a purpose and tying it into the story. I love the splash pages. There is, and again, I don't feel like it's giving anything away, but there's discussions throughout the book about the strength of symbols. And I really feel like they talk about that as part of this. And that's what the artist has been doing. There's all sorts of symbolism throughout the book. Even in this issue that we're talking about, 13, there's all sorts of symbolism in there. So definitely a solid 5. So 4.5 for me overall.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, all right. So my initial rating on the artwork, I'm going to change because of all the discussion and because, you've made me see the light. So story wise, I'm going to go, I have to go 5 because this is like, whoo, I love it. I absolutely love it. Story wise, I'm going to go out and get the rest. Artwork, I originally had it at a 3 because it's just not my cup of tea, but based on our talk, I'm going to give credit to the artist and hope that was what their intention was. And if that is, then I have to, I'm still not a huge fan of the scratchy, watercolor, but I'm going to go all the way to a 4, not even a half. I'm going all the way to a 4. So yeah, so
I'll take it.
Yeah, all the way. So this is a 4.5 for me. I absolutely love this. So thank you, Paul, for recommending this one. This is it was a real pleasure to read, and I could see why it's nominated for an award for sure. Yeah,
I'll be sending you my my comic shop bill, Paul.
Yes, yeah, Paul. You can write all this off on your taxes, Paul. This, so it is what it is.
That's what I need. More shadowy black suited characters showing up at my front door. Thanks.
Yes, the IRS asking you a lot of questions.
I didn't have that already.
Yeah, right. Well,
that's what happened to this. Too many tinfoil hats.
Yeah. Right. Well, great stuff. Well, listen, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure to go out to your local comic shop, pick this book up, support, local comic shops. They need your help. And we're out here looking out for little guys. So we'll see you on the next episode. Well, thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button and click the thumbs up. That'll help us to keep bringing you content like this, reviews from independent comic books. And we'll see you on the next one.